Hey everyone, my name's Walter and I'm back here with more stories I found on Reddit. Today we're talking about neckbeards, intelligent gentlemen who always tip their hats to the ladies. So let's begin with neckbeard stories from Reddit. This first one comes to us from Reddit Tales of Neckbeards. Clingy neckbeard. This happened 15-ish years ago. I'm not sure if he's really a neckbeard, or if maybe he was just really clingy, but I thought it'd fit here anyways. I, 30 female, 15 at the time, met this guy, Neckbeard, NB for short, a few years older than me, 17 or 18 at the time, online. I don't remember if it was on Facebook or on Gaia Online, but it was one of the two. I was a lonely, quiet, reserved kid, so online friendships were my only source of friendship. We talked on and off for a few years, always planning on meeting but never did. He only lived a couple hours from me, but I was a teenager. Then I met my boyfriend at the time, husband now, we'll call him A, and stopped talking to Neckbeard until the year in between high school and college. I worked at a call center and made friends with this girl, S, who, it turned out, was dating Neckbeard. Small world. Neckbeard convinced S to drive me the couple hours to meet him and hang out with the both of them. I didn't think this was a big deal at the time. I was 18-ish, but A didn't want me to go alone, so he hopped in the car with us. When we got to Neckbeard's, definitely confirmed Neckbeard, in looks at this point, fedora and chains included, I immediately felt oddly uncomfortable. He introduced me to his parents, his pets, etc. But he was ignoring A and S the entire time, and he kept trying to get me alone. He finally managed after A went down to the car to get something, and I was on the receiving end of the longest, most uncomfortable hug I've ever experienced in my life. Neckbeard also was going on about how much he missed me, etc., etc. We didn't stay long because S and I had to work the next day, and we left. A year or so later I started college, a few months after getting married. Neckbeard emailed me, and my email signature had my married last name, plus the college course I was taking. He immediately began questioning me on what my signature meant. Me, being kinda oblivious, just replied that for school-related emails, they wanted the signature to say what course we were taking, but he replied back that he meant my last name. I was excited to tell him that I had gotten married, and that I was so happy. Neckbeard had been my friend at one point, and we talked a lot, so I wanted to tell him the good news. After a couple more emails where he told me him and S broke up, I didn't hear anything. A couple years after that, I got an email from Neckbeard asking how everything was going, and was I still with A? I told him great, and yes, I was still with A. I heard nothing back. At this point I thought it was kind of weird and mentioned it to A, and he said that Neckbeard was checking in to see if I was single yet. I thought A was just seeing it in the wrong light, but whatever. After that one conversation, we didn't mention Neckbeard again. Cue to a few years after that when I randomly get an email from Neckbeard, asking me if I was still with A. Again. I told him yes and asked him how he was doing. He told me he split up with someone, so he was kinda depressed. I told him that he would be fine and that there was someone out there for everyone. Platitudes, of course, though I do really believe that. Then he goes on about how he let his soulmate slip through his fingers and the girl for him was already with someone else. Well, then I kinda believed A. I get A to read the email thread and he told me to tell Neckbeard to stop messaging me. I don't like confrontation, so I didn't want to. A messaged Neckbeard on Facebook and told him to stop messaging me. That we're happy and not going to separate so he could stop his check-in emails. Neckbeard denied it, of course, but I haven't heard anything from him since, so it worked. Maybe A was just reading it wrong and that wasn't Neckbeard's intention, but it was still weird. Oof, I just realized how long this is, but 15 years is a long time to cover, lol. Thanks for reading. Wow, he's so blatant about what he's doing. I feel like most people, if they were doing something like this, would at least send a number of messages and act like they're interested. You know, so it isn't completely obvious what they're doing. And the fact that he only messages when someone breaks up with him and he's feeling lonely, it's absolutely pathetic. How many times does he think he can disappear for a few years and still act like he knows this person? I call this the hope attack. Lay the groundwork, apply all meaningless connections, then sit for years, fester, and simply hope and hope and hope. In theory, when all collapses at your end, he's there, pathetic and sad, as the White Knight to rescue you from actual men. Okay, and now we're heading over to Reddit Neckbeard stories to read the sequel to another story I already covered. This is the promised one with the Neckbeard brothers. Neighbor Neckbeard has been harassing me since I was a child. Neckbeard Neighbors, Part 1. Hello there, Reddit. I'm back as I promised with a Neckbeard Neighbors story. Now I know I wrote that the Neckbeards were two brothers, and don't worry, I will write about the other one too. but today I want to mention just the older ones, as this one has a lot more baggage, and is a lot longer. Now, just like before, a small disclaimer that English isn't my first language, so sorry for possible mistakes, and this time I need to say, trigger warning, mentions of possible pedophilia and harassment of a minor. If you find any of these topics triggering, please skip this story. Next part won't be this bad, so if you're interested in my stories, I'd recommend waiting for the next one. Until then, please look after yourselves. Our characters this time will be me, my brother, my two friends B and V, and the older Neckbeard brother, who I'll call Giant. Now, I don't want to make fun of anyone's looks, but that guy was and still is a literal giant, not just by his height, but also by his, well, let's say stomach size. I swear I've never seen anyone this big in my life. And now to the story. So the harassment, I'll be putting it into quotations since I'm still not sure if it really was harassment, I'll let you guys decide, has been happening as long as I can remember, and to make the situation worse, this guy lives next door. Yes, lives. He's still living next door with his mother and younger brother. He's about 30 now. When I say next door, I don't mean it literally, because my flat building is built with two main entrances, so the entire building is basically two separate halves. I live in one side while Giant lives in the other. To understand how inappropriate Giant's behavior is, you need to understand that he's the same age as my brother, which is almost an entire decade apart from me. My brother and Giant used to go to school together, and were even sort of friends back then, so he used to visit our flat a lot. I don't think he was bothering me back then, but it's hard to tell since I don't remember my early childhood that much. Now back then he was just a chubby kid with bad hygiene and somewhat perverse taste, reading porn magazines, watching cassettes with some spicy content, etc. Now you need to understand that back then things like anime, Doritos, and the other usual stuff that neckbeards like wasn't available in my country, so he wasn't obsessed with the usual stuff. One thing he was crazy about were video games, and since we owned PS1 and PS2, he did come over a lot to play games with my brother. As he got older, things started to get really weird. Me and my brother shared a room, so whenever my brother wanted to get food and drinks for them, I was left with Giant all alone. I was about 10 to 11 back then, just doing my schoolwork and not really paying him much attention. But he would always force a conversation between the two of us, and would even sometimes ask some pretty weird questions like, interested in any boys in your class? Or come sit next to me, we can play together. I would always decline, or my brother would come back before I could answer. That is definitely groomer talk. I've read a lot of chat logs, and really, you don't want to ask any of the same questions that Lauren Armstrong did. I mean, why would anyone ever ask a 10-year-old if she likes the boys in her class? One day, during this friendly visit, out of nowhere he just grabbed me and hugged me, really hard, and he wouldn't let go. I was really uncomfortable. I've never been comfortable with physical contact from others, not even with my family. He wouldn't let go until the door opened. Now the door to our room had this big glass panel so you could somewhat make out what was happening inside. My mom saw what was going on and stormed into the room. Giant did let go of me the second he heard the door open, but it was still obvious what he did. Now I didn't really know how to react to him hugging me back then, so I was really confused and also scared, so I ran to my mom, who was furious. She immediately started yelling at him to get out of our flat and that she would have a serious talk with his mother. Now I know what you might think, it was just a hug, so me and my mom might have overreacted, but trust me, that was no friendly hug. His hands were slowly making their way into some pretty intimate places. Now things escalated from that point pretty quickly. My mom and dad went to Giant's mom and told her about what had happened. She forced an apology out of him, and my parents also forbade him from coming to our flat ever again. Next day, my mom would get a call from school about my brother being at the principal's office for getting into a fight. Now my awesome brother stood up for me and beat Giant so bad he had to have stitches. My brother did get a disciplinary warning from it, but my parents weren't mad. They knew he was protecting me. A few years went by until our next encounter. I am always apprehensive about the stories where the neckbeard gets beat up. I guess at least they didn't describe a comical fight scene this time. Kinda surprised there even is another encounter though. Everyone pretty much behaved correctly. My town is known for having some unique celebrations and traditions, so even though Giant could never enter our flat and my brother wasn't talking to him, there was still a chance for him to accidentally bump into me during these events. Luckily, I was never alone, always with my family or friends, so even if I did get close, someone would always be there to make sure he quickly changed his mind and left. I was 13/14 when this next encounter happened. Now that I think about it, this might have been the same year the lake incident from my previous story happened. What a great year. This happened around fall. During the season, most of this town's big celebrations happen, and me and my friend V and B decided we would help out. I will remind you that I was in that extreme social anxiety phase, but being with my friends helped calm it down, so I managed to actually enjoy myself. Well, until you know who showed up. This event was a charity program for local kids. It's a sports day, and kids from the entire town and surrounding villages came to have fun that day, and me and my friends were in charge of the activities, and also prizes for the winners. Now this day was going great, and the kids had a blast, but except there was another person who was meant to be helping. All we knew was that he was older and was running late. Honestly, it would be better if he never showed up, because of course it was Giant, and this time he was in his final form. Stomach hanging from his shirt, I swear the ground shook when he walked over to us, and the smell of this unwashed creature was like a warning. Even if you couldn't see him, you could definitely smell him. Till today, I have no idea who accepted him to help out at a kid's event with his history. I avoided him like the plague and always stayed close to my friends whenever he decided to walk over to me. But one moment my friends had to organize one event on the other side of the field while I did another on the other end. This was the moment Giant was probably waiting for, because as soon as my friends lost sight of me, he appeared behind me. Now this is a conversation that happened between us. Giant. Hi Adele, need help? Me. No, I'm good. Giant. Okay, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you? Me. Good, but please leave me alone. I need to get ready for the next competition. Giant. Come on, we haven't seen each other in so long. I just want to be with you for a bit. Me. No thanks, I really need to work, so please leave me be. I started to walk over to a group of kids that were waiting for me to give them their numbers and tell them what to do to begin the competition. And what do you know, Giant storms in front of me and gets uncomfortably close, and just like that time when I was younger, he grabbed me, and this time squeezed really hard. I tried to fight back straight away, but he just lifted me up and started spinning me around like I was some kind of a paper doll. I'm not physically strong in any way, so I literally had no way of getting out of his grip. Eventually he would put me down, but this time he would put his head on my shoulder, and I swear he smelled my hair, and I felt his hands hover over my behind. He did this in front of so many people, and even little kids. Sadly, none of those adults thought something bad was happening, so I had to endure this until I heard loud stomping and some pretty nasty words coming from the other side of the field. His head immediately shot up, and in the distance but quickly approaching was my friend B. Now she was the same age as me back then, and unlike me, was and still is really short, so imagine the shock on Giant's face when this young little girl, probably not even half his size, ran up to him and kicked him so hard he fell on his ass and straight into a muddy puddle. She took my hand, asked if I was okay, and dragged me to the other side of the field where V was waiting, and they haven't left my side until my dad came to pick us up. Well, the Neckbeard has definitely fallen into a mud puddle in front of everyone. I've seen that move in stories before. Giant vanished from the event shortly after my friend decked him, and I've seen little of him ever since. Until today, I still happen to run into him, but now I'm way more confident, and I think he can feel it because now when he sees me, he always speeds up away from me and goes straight home. Or it might be the fact that I'm not a kid so he doesn't find me attractive anymore. Like I said at the beginning, he was never confirmed to be a pedophile. But I think with his obvious preferences, he has to be. Over the years, I did happen to hear he's been caught in some pretty shady situations with young girls, and even had police come to his place multiple times, but I've never heard of him being punished for anything. And this would be it for the older Neckbeard brother. I'll see when I get to the story about the younger brother, so until then, see you. Edit, I almost forgot to thank all the amazing people that commented on the previous story. Thank you so much for your comments. I honestly never thought anyone would read my story, let alone comment on it, so again, thank you so much. Assuming the story is true, it sounds a little worse than harassment. I'd like to think this guy would have already faced some consequences if he lived in the US. I'd also like to think that he doesn't approach her anymore because she might have a friend or family member right there to run in and dropkick him as usual. I do wish there was more about him being a neckbeard though. We just have that he was fat, smelly, creepy, and liked video games. Maybe that's enough. Anyway, I think that's about all the time I have for you today. Thanks for watching everyone. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you have something to say, make sure you let me hear it in the comments. I'll be here reading them while the video's new. And let me know if you think the mud puddle thing actually happened. If you're new here, consider subscribing for more of the same. Big thanks also to my awesome patrons who help by supporting me more directly over on Patreon. Let's shout them out. Jimmo, Anoi Blue, Levon, Chris Sturman, Chef Casa, Alberto 2001, Big Mike Shirley, Chase Watson, Cho, Daniel Delapena, Don Smith, Dev Notes, Dominique R., Ouroboros, Sammy, Sazandora, Skepticals, Wernology, William Ash, Zebra Bird, Zephyrin, Bumbus McDunga, John Yorkie, Psychic Kumquat, Alex Anakin, Francois Tremblay, Knit1 Code 2, Lil Spoon, Molly Mayhem, and Sepdweller. Thank you again so much, it's been pretty much instrumental. I'll once again be back very soon because I need to get some work done here. Have a great day, everyone, and try not to ask any questions that Lauren Armstrong would.